Hey, what's buddy? Welcome back to News Dose, and we got a new story today that I think is absolutely fascinating because it really showcases PlayStation's lapse in strategy and just the inability to prepare for the increased competition that they're currently facing. Now, I don't necessarily blame this on Sony's current leader because things have changed these past few years, but who I do blame is Herman Hulst and Jim Ryan specifically, who was their former leadership, and they really did a number on PlayStation by focusing on the wrong things, and that now has Sony concerned with their increased competition. In fact, they're now actually afraid and are currently on a mission to quickly change that. So we're going to get all of that today, plus a new Xbox showcase that I think will have some fairly fun surprises. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with the Nintendo 64 FPGA console, the Analogue 3D. Now, this console has been a lightning rod for controversy because it was supposed to release early in 2025. However, after they already took people's money for its pre-orders, last year actually, they then delayed it 3 times without any kind of evidence that it would live up to all of their lofty claims. Well, reviews have been rolling out today, and I'm happy to say that Analogue has done it yet again. I mean, there is a reason that people get just so worked up over analog consoles. It's because they have a great reputation for recreating consoles at the utmost quality, not only in terms of hardware accuracy, but they also just know how to enhance those consoles as well. I mean, if you look at the Analogue Pocket as one such example, its display is beyond amazing for Game Boy titles. And in the case of the Analogue 3D, it enhances the Nintendo 64 in a multitude of different ways. One is that it's able to output Nintendo 64 games at 4K resolution, and I've seen a lot of comparisons of this today, and just based on what I saw, this is by far the best way to play Nintendo 64 games in the year of 2025. They look really good on a modern-day TV. It also offers some overclocked options as well, which makes certain Nintendo 64 games feel a lot better with smoother frame rate. There are quite a few Nintendo 64 games that just don't really run that smooth, so that is a really nice option to have. Now, there are some downsides as well, one of which is that currently the EverDrive Nintendo 64 flash cartridge does not work for the Analogue 3D, and I mean, that's too bad because it's by far the most popular option on the market. Now, for those that don't know, it's a cartridge that allows you to install Nintendo 64 games via an SD card and play them that way, which is a great option to have considering buying Nintendo 64 games on the secondhand market can get very expensive very quick. However, I have heard that the Summer Cart works for the Analogue 3D, which does the same thing. So, this is really only going to impact people who already owns an EverDrive. You're just not going to be able to use it, or at least for the time being. Now, I will say that I wouldn't be shocked if they add compatibility for the EverDrive at some point. Analogue does a fairly good job with post-launch updates, so we'll see what happens. The other big issue for at least right now is that while reviewers are raving about how good it is, that doesn't really do new customers a lot of good because in typical fashion for analog-based products, it's currently out of stock. Now, again, I'm sure that'll probably change at some point. They'll probably have this thing come up in waves, but for now, you can watch reviews and just kind of bask in its glory. But if you don't already have one pre-ordered, then, well, you're just out of luck for the time being. And that's one of the things that customers hate the most about Analogue. Yes, they make amazing products. They're absolutely fantastic for what they do, but they make them fairly difficult to get. Now, I have to say, though, I've watched a lot of reviews today, and just based on everything that I've been seeing and based on what I've been hearing, I am super excited to get mine myself. I did pre-order it last year because the Nintendo 64 is one of my favorite consoles of all time. I have a lot of nostalgia and a lot of memories for this console, and I do like analog products. So just hearing how good the Analogue 3D is, I mean, first off, it's reassuring for everybody that was worried about it, but yeah, I can't wait to try it for myself. Now, we also got a surprise Switch 2 Shadow launch today that I think is actually very cool, and that's for Tomb Raider: The Definitive Edition. Now, this is the 2013 reboot, which is really one of my favorites for the entire series. I truthfully really like the modern Tomb Raider trilogy, which probably isn't a big surprise. You all know how much I love the Uncharted games, and Tomb Raider is kind of cut from the same cloth. The thing about these games, though, is that they're also absolutely gorgeous, and that's where the Switch 2 comes into play. I mean, 12 years ago, when it first released, I would have never expected it to be playable natively on a handheld console, but that's how far technology has come in that span of time. And truthfully, I think this game still looks great to this day, and to have it as a handheld option is, again, I just think really cool to see. Oh, and by the way, they didn't just reveal it, they also announced that it's available, yes, today, so you don't even have to wait for this one. I believe it's going for just $18 as of right now. It is on discount because of its launch, but there you go. If you haven't played this game for whatever reason, or hey, if you just want to replay it again, then hey, go ahead and check it out on the Switch 2. Amazing game, and I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, now, since we're talking about the Switch 2 and really just how capable it is, that brings me to the PlayStation and why they're currently afraid. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is first, I'm going to read this report by Push Square, and then I'm going to elaborate and give my opinion. So they reported that PlayStation's previous management believed it was acceptable for Nintendo to erode its market share in Japan, but new CEO Hideki Nishino, who's Japanese and has replaced British leader Jim Ryan, won't go down without a fight. According to a report by TV Tokyo, the company committed to its plan of releasing a cut-price, Japanese-language-only model within 4 months of its rival deploying the same strategy with the Switch 2. The move comes with substantial risks. The model may lose the manufacturer money as component prices have soared since the PlayStation 5's launch in 2020, but apparently, Nishino believes it's necessary to stop PlayStation's domestic rot. While the PlayStation 5 started quite strongly in Japan, its sales have slowed significantly due to rising prices. To make matters worse, Nintendo's grip on the region, with its more appealing hybrid hardware form factor, has started to eat into Sony's market share. And it's that truly has PlayStation afraid. I mean, it's been no secret that Nintendo has dominated Japan for a very, very long time. But the sad thing is that PlayStation willingly allowed that to happen because even though they're a Japanese company, they let the Western branch take over and they shifted their focus elsewhere. I mean, we could probably trace the downfall of PlayStation in Japan all the way back to the Vita if we wanted to, just because handhelds are extremely popular over there. And when they bailed out of the handheld race, that impacted them over in Japan because they left the market completely to Nintendo. And it's really only gotten worse since that point because it's not just about hardware and form factor, it's also about the software. And what really stands out to me about modern-day PlayStation, specifically in Japan, is that they have completely shifted away from creative studios like Sony Japan Studio. Unfortunately, they closed them down back in 2021, which I thought was ridiculous at the time, and I still think is ridiculous to this day. Now, all Sony really seems to do, though, is they either make narrative-driven single-player games that appeals to Western gamers, and then live service, which, I mean, they really have not had a lot of success with at all. I mean, just welcome to the Jim Ryan and Herman Hulse strategy. But yeah, they're not making a lot of smaller creative games that bends that strategy. They do have Astrobot, but outside of that, not much else. And they're also not making a lot of games that actually caters to the Japanese audience specifically like they used to. That's where they're really missing Japan Studio. But up to this point, they've been able to get away with all these decisions because PlayStation more or less has been the default console for a lot of Japanese-developed games. I mean, think about franchises like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Monster Hunter, Yakuza, Resident Evil, and the list goes on and on and on. Up to this point, Japanese customers had to buy a PlayStation console to play a lot of those games because the Switch 1 just wasn't capable. But the Switch 2 has completely changed that narrative. Now, for the first time, I'd say pretty much since the GameCube days, Nintendo has a console that is extremely capable of running a lot of the same games that PlayStation can. Sure, it might not be at the same level, but they can run them in a very popular form factor that Japanese gamers really enjoy. And we're already seeing glimpses of that. Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to the Switch 2. The Yakuza games have been coming to the Switch 2. Elden Ring is coming to the Switch 2, and even Resident Evil 9. That is a brand new AAA game, and it's coming to the Switch 2. So PlayStation is looking at that, and they are noticing, well, we might not necessarily be the default console anymore for these games. So now PlayStation can't fall back on a bare minimum effort in Japan. They'll no longer have a lot of those Japanese developed games as exclusive titles by default. And that's why Sony is afraid. The Switch 2 is bringing the heat to Sony. And because of that, Sony's already pushing a cheaper PlayStation 5 unit in Japan. And as I always like to say, that there is the beauty of competition. Sony is finally facing more competition, and they're already being forced to improve for their customers. They are going to have to fight for their customers. Now, hopefully this will also push them back to making more creative games once again. You know, not everything necessarily needs to be a big AAA blockbuster or a live service title, but, you know, we'll see. Either which way, though, I view this as great news for PlayStation customers. When these companies have to fight for your money, that's when you're going to see them at their best. Now, one more thing before we go, though, because Xbox just announced a partner showcase, which will air on November 20th. In their press release, they said that we're excited to reveal that the next Xbox Partner Preview, our broadcast that shines a light on upcoming games from our talented third-party partners, is coming this Thursday, November 20th. This show will include news on upcoming games from partners including IO Interactive, Eclipse Glow Games, and THQ Nordic, plus some brand new reveals and Game Pass announcements. Now, they already confirmed 007 First Light, Tides of Annihilation, and Reanimal, so if you're interested in any of those games, we will get an update for all of those. But even outside of those games, I fully expect some worthwhile surprises. In fact, Silent Hill 2 Remake already seemingly leaked out. Sounds like it will get a November 21st release date, which is just one day after their showcase. I mean, could that be a coincidence? Sure, but my expectation is that it will be announced at their showcase, and Silent Hill 2 is an amazing game. I mean, there's a good reason that it's viewed as an all-time great horror game, and I think they did a pretty good job with the remake. Of course, though, as usual, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, then these showcases are pretty much always worthwhile. I mean, they're already teasing some Game Pass announcements. We saw that in their press release, and that's really been a main theme for them for years. So I'm sure if you're a Game Pass subscriber, they're going to have some fun surprises. But if you do miss the showcase, don't worry, because I'll keep you posted. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.